Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Or good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I know a lot of people are joining in from the US and UK and Europe. Fabulous to have all of you with us. And today is another wonderful episode on Sangeet Foundation. Sangeet Foundation, as you know, believes in happiness through music and the arts. And today we have both. And so, happiness through music and the arts is about creating awareness about mental health and addressing mental health using music and the arts. And what more appropriate session can we have than this session of the psychoanalyst and the pianist? And both of them are our favorites from the UK, and I'm sure you would know all about them. And we will have a fabulous session understanding, going a bit deeper into the concept of mental health and addressing that. And we have a fabulous expert over here with us, uh, and the pianist. And you all know the pianist quite well. So you've heard him play many times on the stages of UK and in Europe as well. So I'll start off with, the psychotherapist. So that's Sunita. Sunita Pattani is a psychotherapist and author based in the UK. She is particularly interested in the mind body connection and how the quantum worldwide informs psychotherapeutic practice. She currently specializes in treating psychological trauma and binge eating disorder. Sunita is a graduate of the University of Birmingham, where she obtained a degree in mathematics, science, and education in 2003, followed by a postgraduate certificate in education (PGCE) in 2004. She taught for 5 years before studying an advanced diploma in hypnotherapy and psychotherapeutic counseling, and has since studied a number of additional energy psychology healing modalities. She has recently obtained an MSc in Consciousness Studies, Spirituality, and Transpersonal Psychology, and is shortly set to undertake a doctorate. To date, Sunita has authored 3 books, two of which have recently been translated into Portuguese. Following the release of her second book, The Transcendent Mind, Sunita has become an established international speaker, teaching and facilitating workshops in Brazil, India, and the USA, as well as blogging for the Huffington Post. Sunita is also a featured psychotherapist for the BBC Asian Network. She has recently finished co-authoring a third book, The Quantum Science of Happiness, with Dr. Amit Goswami. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Sunita Pattani on stage with us. Sunita,
Hello,
it's
everyone.
fabulous to have you with us, Sunita. Thank you so much. I think it's a fabulous opportunity for Sangeet Foundation and all our listeners and viewers. Um, so so thank you.
You are more than welcome. Actually, pleasure's all mine. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to tonight. And let's see how it unfolds. And actually, based on what you were saying, I think it's probably going to be a slightly different session in the sense that we certainly have a psychotherapist and a pianist, which is quite an interesting combination, actually, especially because the pianist happens to be my husband, which makes it rather more interesting. But actually, what I'm hoping to do today is to really kind of build a little bit of awareness about what mental health actually is, and perhaps really give my perspective on how I would work towards, looking for healing or looking to healing. So yeah, and guys, before we bring Hinal on, actually, what I do want to ask you guys is, what is your concept of mental health? How do you understand mental health? Okay, what is it to you? So if you can just type away in the chat box while we meet my other half.
Absolutely fabulous. So And while people do shoot your questions to Sunita, she has and you would be benefiting from this session. The whole idea is to have a better understanding, and do put in your questions, and we'll put it up on the screen for Sunita to see and respond to. But in the meantime, we have this fabulous pianist, Hinal Pattani. Hinal Pattani is a music director, pianist, and producer. He has been directing the most sought after Bollywood band in the UK, the 515 Crew, since 2009. He has he was recently in charge of music of the UK Indian Idol tour of Rock on Music, and is currently working on catching up with his own musical studies, keeping occupied during lockdown in a constructive manner. And apart from that, I can also say that he's a fabulous teacher. And if you would really want to learn the keyboard, here's the man to go for. And he's a very busy man, so very difficult to catch hold of him. And here we have Hinal. Hinal, welcome on board. It's fabulous to have you as well.
Thank you.
And looking forward to listening to some fabulous music.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, it's a really, really strange, strange program lineup, and I've never done anything like this. But it'll be nice to talk about mental well-being and lift everyone's spirits with a bit of good energy and vibes on the piano at some point.
Fabulous. So should we start off with a piece from you then? And while you are at it, what I'll be doing is there are some responses to Sunita's question, and I'll be putting it up on the screen while we listen to you play.
No problem. Yeah, no problem at all. Let's get in the mood a little bit, shall we? Can you guys hear this okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you go. Hey, Simi, how you doing? Great to see you on here. Thank you so much. Lovely to see some of these comments coming as well. Thanks, Sunam, as well. It's been ages since I've seen you. I hope you guys are all safe and well. So that was a little bit of, my wife was hearing me prepare some of this stuff earlier, and she goes, can you not play something that's a little bit more up-tempo and lively? But
I mean, good to look, you know, I mean, that's not a bad choice of song, actually, Hin. When you come to think of like mental health and other people's opinions and how they affect you. So, yeah, it's quite apt, isn't it?
Well, I was tinkling about, and with all this new jazz reading I've been doing lately, I don't know why, I just started mucking around with some chords, and I was really gravitating towards that song. And I think I'm going with my gut feelings today. So whatever I feel, that's pretty much what I'm going to play.
Awesome.
What's next?
What's next? Okay, so, you know, I want to try and keep this webinar as simple as possible. You know what I'm super passionate about, and you know how I feel about mental health awareness. And you also know that I like to go a little bit deeper when it comes to looking at mental health. So, guys, what I do want to say is that whilst I am going to try to keep this webinar as simple as possible, you know, if you do a Google search, you will find out the basics about how to keep yourself mentally healthy, okay? And in my opinion, the truth is that to really make improvements in your mental and emotional well-being, I think we need to have a much better understanding about who we really are, okay? You know, I come across a lot of talk about mental health, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that we have awareness out there. But I also think that it is time that we, especially with the whole COVID pandemic, to really start to go a little bit deeper, in actually, what is mental health? Who am I? And what do I actually need to be doing in order to keep myself well and healthy? Okay. And I can see all you guys comment. So, hey folks, good to have you here. So really, you know, three things that I would like to say is, number one, it's real. Mental health, it is real. We all have mental health, and we all really need to start perhaps changing perceptions about how we're looking at it. Number two, we do need to talk about it, not just mental health, but also within our families, you know, within our societies, within our schools. And number three, we need to understand it. You know, what is it, this thing that we talk about when we talk about mental health? So at the beginning of this session, I asked you guys to, you know, kind of put on screen what mental health actually means to you. So let's have a look at what we've got. So we've got Gia saying the feeling of being content, whatever the reality of our circumstances. Okay, that's interesting. But also the ability to see a situation for what it is and not catastrophizing it to be more than that. Okay, all right. Did we have anybody else? Taking care of yourself. We need to try and keep positive attitude. And part of that is focusing on our spirituality. Awesome, Simi. Actually, a little later, I'm going to be sharing a slide where we're going to be looking at that slightly, the spiritual aspect. Music is definitely a part of keeping good mental health. Hinal, how do you feel that music impacts your mental health, just out of interest? Oops, we can't hear or see you. Hold on. We still can't hear or see you.
Are you? My mistake. So are you looking to get feedback from people then, Sunita?
I've actually already got, I was just actually asking Hinal, so how
right.
music kind of impacts his mental health.
I was locked out of the concert. My backstage pass expired, and they kicked me out the building because I didn't have a wristband or a ticket. But to your question, I remember back in 2012 when I finished a theatre run with an awesome team. I had 6 months of really amazing daily work, 7 days a week, living the musician's dream. And then it all stopped and it went quiet. And I had not a single client, not a single show of work. As you know, I was out of it for about 4 or 5 months with not a single bit of income coming in. And the only thing that I could keep my focus with was my practice at that time. Now, I know everyone has different methods, but for me, music was a major part of keeping me grounded. But that was, I guess, my job in my craft. I'm sure if anyone was passionate about what they do, that's something that they would probably divert their attention to. As hard as it was, I could have sunk into some very dark thoughts, but I kept myself playing music through that time. So yeah, that did help me.
Yeah, because you get into quite a meditative state, don't you, when you play, and when you like really kind of practice. You can practice for like hours and hours. I should know. I have to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm here for, the best part of 6-7 hours in a day, on and off, and I know, because you might say things and I don't even know if you're talking to me.
I know. This is so bad. I know. And I guys, just to say, I have endured hours and hours of listening to the same scales over and over. And you know, have you guys ever heard the piece Bumblebee before? I have heard Hinal play that non-stop for hours, to the point where it nearly affected my mental health in terms of anxiety. Right. So, yeah, Hinal, I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we had quite a few comments coming in, quite a few good comments actually, that we had coming up. So I wanted to share with you guys just a slide. So there you go. Right, can you guys see that? Hinal, are you able to see that?
I can now.
You can now. Okay, so mental health. So I really like this particular definition because I think it's quite inclusive. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, it affects how we feel, and it also affects how we act. It helps us to determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of our life, from childhood and adolescence right through to adulthood. Okay, so if we look at it from that perspective, I mean, mental health affects practically everything. And although we won't have time within this particular session, but when we really get into the depth of how belief systems are formed and, you know, the sorts of things that you've actually been through in life that have changed perceptions for you, it really is absolutely fascinating to begin to kind of deconstruct ourselves and really understand, you know, what makes me tick the way that I do? What's happened to me in the past which makes me tick the way that I do? Now, so my personal view of mental health, I think I would add to that slightly. Mental health, in my opinion, is a whole being experience, which means that it affects us on a mental level, a physical level, an emotional level. It affects us on a social perspective as well as a spiritual perspective as well. And, you know, quite often what I find is that one of the things that is kind of kept out of mental health, especially when we look at the treatment of things like trauma, is the impact and the effect that these experiences have in our body. And so mind and body, to me, they're not separate. They're actually deeply interconnected, and they are in constant communication. They're in constant flow. Okay, so I think that's quite interesting. Now, whilst we're actually on the topic of of looking at the body and how the mind does affect the body, I wanted to share with you guys briefly this. And this is really looking at immunity and how stress really impacts the body, which I think is really quite apt given, you know, the whole COVID situation and things that, you know, that we've all been going through for the last year or so. So, you know, the idea is that stress will actually change your brain. It will affect your gut and therefore your digestion. In fact, for those of you that don't know, the gut has a huge impact on mental health. So good nutrition, probiotics are absolutely essential for good gut health. And actually, the good news is that Indian food is actually quite good for this, because we've got a very, very good balance of these foods. I probably have to watch your Brontan Bhajiya intake a little bit, but, you know. So just showing you a little bit about, you know, stress. We see an increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. It impacts our hormones, okay, which then impacts our immune system. And like I said, disturbance of the digestive system. So what does that actually look like? Well, difficulty in concentrating, anxiety, depression, cardiovascular health, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, affecting your joints and muscles. So stress has been known to increase inflammation, tensions, aches, pains, muscle tightness, and the immune system, so decreased immune function. So as you can see, you know, mental health isn't just about what are we thinking, what are we feeling. It's also about how it's affecting our body. Okay, so, you know, Hinal, I think that might be a good little time for us to have a bit of a song from you, a bit of a tune.
Is it time for me again?
Yeah, because I don't want to stress everyone out.
Talking about digestion having a massive impact on how we feel.
I was just actually asking. Oops, sorry, don't know what's happened here.
Is it time for me again?
Okay, go on.
Back on the live. Yeah, you were talking about the digestion bit impacting how we feel. I feel rotten when I don't get my roti.
Do you?
Yeah, it properly upsets me, and I get very depressed if I don't have my curry.
I can teach you how to make it.
Thanks. Okay, on that note, so what am I feeling right now? Let's have a look. So let's have a look. I'm in the mood for something a little bit. Santu. I hope you're doing well, mate. It's great to see you. Hope you enjoyed it.
That was awesome, Pins. I almost feel bad about having to go on and talk about trauma after you played so nicely.
Well, it's a big old cushion. I nearly said something wrong. It's a big old cushion for everyone, you know. Just soften the information a little bit. And now Tuma Gayeho. So
yeah, I'm not sure we're going to say Noora Gaya here though after what I speak about, but there you go. Right, okay. So right, I'm really sorry guys, but I'm going to come back to the topic of stress again. Okay, so, and I'm only going to,
I'll calm you down.
Yeah, I'll stress you guys out. Yeah, I think that's good actually, and all. Right, so coming back to the topic of stress now, something that I think is super important, and again, I'm just going to share screen with you guys again, if we can. Let's have a look. Are you guys able to see this? And all, you can see this?
Yeah, I can see this, yeah.
Can. Okay, so, okay. Right, so, folks, it's really important to remember that when I talk about stress, stress isn't just about something that we experience day to day. Stress is also created by unresolved trauma. Okay, so if you've had something that you've perceived to be traumatic in the past, even if it happened, you know, months or years ago, and if that is unresolved, so if you've not made peace with that, and of course, you know, here we've got to understand that, you know, making peace with something from our conscious mind, thinking that we've made peace with something, doesn't necessarily mean that we have actually made peace with something. Okay, that, remember what I said, mental health is a whole being experience. So if we've not made peace with that, there's a chance that that particular incident will continue to create a certain level of stress in the body. And if that stress continues, you will find that that's what goes on to create depressions, anxieties, physical illnesses, and mental health issues. Okay. And also, I think it's really important to recognize as well that there are actually two types of trauma that we experience, keeping it really simple for you guys. Two types of trauma. You have what we call a big T trauma, which is something that is actually life-threatening or perceived to be life-threatening. Okay, so here we're talking about things like wars, terrorist attacks, you know, serious physical, emotional abuse. Okay, so big T traumas where we are at risk or we think we are actually going to die. And then we have small T traumas. And small T traumas are really the interesting ones because these are the little things that happen to us in life that, you know, they could be one-liners that somebody says to us and might not necessarily be impactful for the people around us. But for us, they serve as being, you know, something as almost like a mini trauma. So, for example, you know, if you've had issues with your skin and you've spent a long time, you're really conscious, you know, you've got a lot of acne, it's taken you a lot of courage to actually, you know, go to a family function. You arrive there, you're a little bit nervous, and somebody says to you, a family member says to you, you know, all right, pizza face, how's it going? You know, and it may be humorous to other people, but for that person, that could constitute as a small T trauma. And of course, it's years and years and years of having these little small T traumas that actually build up, form perceptions that then run the belief systems, the way in which we see the world. Okay, so I think, again, you know, trauma is something I'm super passionate about. It's actually the area in which I'm doing research in, so intergenerational trauma, you know, how trauma sort of passes down the generations, you know, we're all carrying some traumas from our ancestors and how that actually manifests. So really, really fascinating topic. Okay. Hinal, what do you think? Should we teach a bit more? Should we have a bit of music?
If you'd like me to. What's everyone saying? Another tune, maybe?
Let's have a look. Actually, you know what? Let me teach a little bit more, just a little bit, and then we'll fit another song in. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Give me time to practice.
Okay, cool. I won't say what I was going to say. Right, I'm going to do a quick share screen again, though. Right, so bear with me, guys. Okay, so right, so how do we actually begin to manage these stresses? Okay, so where do we start? If we don't know what we're doing with our mental health, where do we actually start? Okay, so, you know, I think that there are 5 aspects that we could address. Physical, thoughts, emotions, social connections, and spiritual connection. Okay, and I just want to really spend a very little bit of time just looking at what each of these things actually are. Okay, so what do these things actually mean? Right, so what is a thought? A thought is a mental cognition. They can be ideas, they can be memory-like, they can be pictures, they can be like songs. We can describe our thoughts to others. We can also observe our thoughts as well. So what are the ways to really work with our thoughts? Talking definitely helps to organize them and to work through them. Meditation, brilliant for observing, for quietening the mind, for focus. Cognitive behavior types of therapies may be really helpful here too. What I think is quite often missed when we talk about mental health is the fact that some of these therapies, when we're looking at talking therapy or cognitive type therapies, are not always enough to actually work with what's happening with our emotions and with our physical body. I'm not saying they don't help. I'm saying that quite often it's not enough. Okay. For that, we need to go a little bit deeper and actually understand what an emotion is. All right. So we all have an idea, right, of what love, fear, anger, are. Emotions are complex experiences that involve cognition, affect, and physiology. So emotions are all about, the feeling aspect in our body. Okay, so the cognitive part of us, the thinking part of us, identifies what is actually happening, but the emotional part of us is really where we feel what is happening. Okay, and of course, emotions are very, very closely linked with sensations in the body. And again, like I said, sensations are what we feel in the body. Okay, now the interesting thing with sensations are sometimes it's possible to feel something and not label what you're feeling. Okay, so sometimes it's like we'll have a feeling and we're like, not quite sure what the emotion is here. All right, so, and I think it's important to understand that. So thoughts, emotions that do come with sensations, and then we have sensations which don't necessarily have to come with emotions. I hope that makes sense. Like I said, trying to keep it as basic as possible. Okay. I think, Hinal, before we move on, let's calm ourselves down a bit, shall we?
Hey, yeah, okay. Why not?
Fry everybody.
Very odd. This is very, very odd. Usually there's like some kind of connection between what I'm about to play next. But this is pretty much whatever I feel. So here's something else. Oh, incidentally, it was the death anniversary of the legendary R.D. Berman. I think 4th of January, if I'm not mistaken. And by default today, I've really had a bit of a Berman theme going on with a lot of the pieces I've played. And this was one I thought of earlier when I was mucking around with an old favorite.
That was awesome. That
Yeah.
was awesome, Hinny. I just saw Mano on there. Hi, Mano. How are you?
They did join us.
They did. These are our Brazilian friends, guys, by the way.
Adrian Manos.
Oh, God. Okay, here we go, Hinal. Okay, so coming back to emotions. Hin, I'm wondering, can you just turn yourself down a little bit? I can hear you in here.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
Okay. Right, so coming back to emotions. Now, you know, folks, I just want to focus a little bit on emotions, just a little bit, because actually emotions are very, very powerful aspects. And what a lot of people don't realize is that we can't always manage emotions just through thinking our way through them. Okay, so, you know, I come across a lot of people who use meditation, all sorts of mindfulness techniques, which are absolutely brilliant and they do a great job. But sometimes the emotions can be really strong. And I also hear a lot of people, given the advice that, when you have a strong emotion, sit with your emotion. Again, great advice in order to become aware of what's happening in the body and what it is that you're feeling and what you're thinking. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. There are certain tools and techniques that you can actually use, which are really, really good at managing and working with your emotions. And one of the tools that I like to use in practice is something called emotional freedom techniques, which is a system which basically involves tapping. I know it sounds bizarre, but it works really well. Tapping on certain parts of the body, which are acupressure points. When I first came across this, and Hinal, I think you'll attest to this. Do you remember the first time I came across tapping years ago? Do you remember what my response was?
What the hell?
Yeah, but it wasn't that polite though, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Right, okay. I was like, there's no way this crazy stuff is going to work. Like tapping on certain parts of the body, like seriously? And then basically what happened is I had a client who came in for therapy this quite a few years ago, and my therapy wasn't very effective, even though I was bringing in a lot of the spiritual elements. Some of you will know that I have a history in kind of researching a lot of research in near-death experiences, and the whole spiritual aspect, the whole aspect of oneness and consciousness. So even though I was bringing in loads of amazing tools and techniques, it wasn't enough to actually help this person manage their emotions. So if there's something that I would really like you guys to take away, is that we have, when you are looking at your healing, please consider this. Right. For your mental, so these are for your thoughts, you need to be looking at cognitive techniques. So talk therapies, meditation, mindfulness, thought awareness techniques, anything like that. To deal with emotions, you want to be having a look at energy psychology-based techniques. So trauma release techniques such as emotional freedom techniques, matrix reimprinting, EMDR. Okay. To take care of your body, you want to be looking at nutrition, yoga, exercise. Obviously, the spiritual side is all about developing your spiritual connection, getting in via meditation, or whatever practice feels right to you, and social connections. So having a tribe, having people that you really trust, people that you can go to that you really trust, super important with mental health. It's been shown, guys, that people who experience really intense trauma, the ones that usually make the best recovery are the ones that have a strong social network to go back to. They're the ones that recognize that the trauma is over and that they have strong social connections that they go back to. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is just giving you a little map of where you might want to go depending on where your mental health is. Okay, and of course, the other thing that I really, really want to say is that, having therapy doesn't mean that you're broken. It means that you're choosing to understand yourself better. It means that you're choosing to empower yourself. I think quite often there's a stigma attached to, well, I don't want to go see a therapist or a shrink, or, I don't even want to go to the doctors, or, whatever it is. But the truth of the matter is that therapy, it doesn't mean that you're broken. And you know, guys, as parents, as teachers, as medics, I think all of us, the most important question, and I think that this is so important, you know what we often say to people, what's wrong with you? The question is never what's wrong with you. The question is always what's happened to you. What's happened to you, right? Because that changes the whole dynamic. It's not, you know, blaming a person that there's something wrong with them. It's inquiring with a person, what's happened to you? You know, why you know, what's coming up for you? Where are these feelings coming from? Where are these thoughts coming from? And, you know, if parents started to take, teachers started to take more of this sort of an approach, we would probably end up with a society that had better mental health. Okay, so Hinal, I think let's have a song from you, and then perhaps, guys, take some questions if you have any. What do you think?
Sounds like a good idea. All right. Well, this is. I remember doing I think a piano gig online. Seems like ages now. In lockdown number 1. Feels like we're actually counting lockdowns instead of years now. It's not 2020 anymore. It's year of the lockdown. And I remember playing this song because it's a beautiful melody. It's one of my favorites. And again, I think it's an R.D. Berman lovely one. So here we go. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah.
It was good, Hin.
I think that changed the mood for a little while. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Right, guys, does anybody have any questions? about mental health. Any questions at all? What have we got? Music connects us with the soul, deeper connection with our emotions and feelings. Yeah, I would say, Adriana, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. Adriana's also from Brazil, so good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. Oh, that's my mum. Hi, mum. Oh, here, mum says, nice one, son.
Thanks, Mom.
What else have we got coming up? I think people enjoyed that, Pins.
Yeah. I'm just having a look through the comments, see, did we miss any questions?
Yeah, that's just what I'm looking at as well.
So, I mean, this thing about music and spirituality, I think because we've always associated it with, you know, when we meditate, we like to, maybe sometimes some people like to meditate with music that grounds them, connects them to some kind of source. And that's the ultimate thing, really, isn't it? I'm quite opposite, actually. I can't meditate with sound. Like it just distracts me. If I start listening to music, my brain goes off, but maybe that's because I'm a musician. My brain goes off on a tangent and I forget why I'm sitting there. And then I get hungry and then it's all over. See, back to food, my digestion, see, my emotions, food.
Are we back to Hinal and Rutti again?
Yeah.
We're back to Hinal and Rutti again, aren't we?
I'm an emotional eater.
Are you an emotional? Did you just say you're an emotional eater?
I think so.
I think you. No comment. Let's not go there.
So what's Nisha? Nisha had a question.
Yeah, she did. Let's have a look. Can we have Nisha's question up again, please?
How to help people match up symptoms
to adverse events. Okay, and then you said something like make the connect. Oh, you know what, Nisha, that's such a good question. You know, I've just actually been started teaching an online trauma course in Brazil starting yesterday. And you know, this is the thing with when you're looking at like people who have experienced traumatic events, there isn't always, it's not always easy, because sometimes when the traumatic event happens, the symptoms can actually kick in weeks or months afterwards. So sometimes people don't always make the connection, okay, that, oh, you know, that event occurred and this is why I'm feeling like this. The sorts of kind of symptoms or the sorts of signs that I would encourage people to look for is things like irritability, troubles in concentrating, people, you know, if you're having flashbacks of any sort, the image just kind of occurring, being startled by loud noises, constantly feeling wired, you know, constantly feeling like you're on high alert. You know, like I said, if you're feeling symptoms like that, then it is kind of worth perhaps speaking to somebody and really trying to kind of ask yourself, right, is there anything that's happened in the recent past or you know, perhaps even a few months ago that was really upsetting for me or that I perceived as a traumatic event? And, you know, people, the one thing that I do want to say is that you know, different people experience trauma differently. So it's not the event itself that's traumatic, it's the perception of that event that becomes traumatic. So you could have two people that experience the same event, and one person will experience that event as traumatic based on their perceptions and their belief systems, and another person will not experience that event as traumatic. Okay, and there could be a number of reasons for that. You know, it could be the way that the person's, you know, the upbringing. So we know, for example, that children that are brought up in unsafe environments around parents or caregivers that are fighting or arguing a lot, quite often, you know, have a lower resilience level in comparison with children who are brought up in safer environments. In fact, there's also research that shows that pregnant mothers that experience domestic violence, you know, quite often their children have a higher predisposition towards borderline personality disorder, for example. Okay, so, you know, the first place that I would start is really looking inside of you. what am I feeling? You know, am I irritable? Do I have butterflies in the stomach? Is my heartbeat faster? Am I just feeling a little bit off? And then perhaps take it from there. Okay, but that was a good question. And I hope I've interpreted that question correctly. Any more questions, guys? Music heals, yeah. Rita Marat, Music Heals. Guys, those of you that don't know, Rita does an excellent live every week. Rita, I think it's Monday evenings, right? You do the live, and it's awesome. She has like loads of people that come on and talk about their stories about how music affects and impacts them. Absolutely awesome. So, you know, you might want to catch that on Insta Live. So, yep. Jazz, you had a question? What tools could you recommend us to help get through these isolating times? Okay, so yeah, we're in a bit of an awkward predicament, aren't we? Bit of a challenging predicament with COVID. Right, first thing is that, you know, remembering that we do have things like Zoom, the phone, keeping in touch with loved ones, even if it's just one person, you know, you feel that you can reach out to, keeping in touch with people around you. You know, making sure that you're looking after your physical health. So moving the body, going out for your walk or exercising really, really has a good impact on mental health. Listening to music, of course, is a great one. But if you do want to go that little bit deeper, guys, you know, learning certain tools and techniques such as some basic breathing meditations. I tend to do a lot of EFT or tapping with the people that I know. Absolutely awesome at just moving those emotions and those feelings through. Okay, so really having a look at, remember what I said, that looking at the physical body, you know, what can you do there? Looking at your mental thoughts, how could you boost that? You know, could you meditate, have a look at mindfulness, connect with people, looking at your emotions. So breaking those 5 areas down and then thinking about things that would really help to nourish you in those different areas. Okay. Okay, let's have a look. I think that if people were treated as a whole person instead of mind separate from the body, there wouldn't be as much stigma in mental health. Yeah, you know, Simi, actually, you've raised a really important point there. If people were treated as a whole person, and you know, I could do several webinars actually on this topic. This does come down to, when you break this down, it really does come down to what we understand the mind and the body to be. This is actually a worldview issue. You know, we tend to place a lot of focus on the mental element. So, you know, I often think that we've turned into a generation with social media that's become very, very focused on information, you know, taking in loads of information, more information, more information. And, you know, a lot of people have actually kind of lost touch with, hang on a minute, bring it back. What's happening in the body? What's happening in the body? So really having a look at connecting the person as a whole, looking at the whole environment, inside and out, is absolutely essential. And I think the other thing as well, you know, somebody asked a question a few weeks ago about the South, you know, South Asian community and mental health. You know, again, it's this idea, you know, the stigma that we have that, well, mental health means mad, or it helps, you know, the person's gone crazy, but that's not the case at all. You know, you're quite right. Mental health is a whole being experience. And the quicker that we get to grips with what that means, the better a society that we will end up raising in future. So, yeah, thank you for that. Okay. I'm just having a look at this. Do you use music treatment to deal with traumas? Tell us something about this. Okay. Right, I'm just having a look at that. Do I use music? Me personally, Adriana, I don't. I know lots of music therapists that do, with amazing outcomes. Me in particular, which you already know, my focus tends to be psychological trauma and really, really focusing on you know, the creating safety for the person, and then using techniques such as emotional freedom techniques and matrix, and of course looking at the belief systems that have been formed. okay, because that's super important. So I personally, you know, I might recommend that people listen to music to lift their mood, to get in touch with their emotions. Maybe, if I'm being a bit mean, using music to trigger a person back into a state so we can get in there and do the work. But in terms of, do I use any music therapy, conventional kind of music therapy techniques? No, I tend not to. Okay, so what have we got here? It's triggers. Okay, music always uplift, no matter how sad or happy. Yeah, that it does. Absolutely. Absolutely, it does. Certain tracks or pieces bring up old pain, but I find that if I listen repeatedly, helps neutralize emotions. Overcoming fears with gradual reintegration of triggers. What are your thoughts? Great question, Sonia. You're quite right. Definitely listening to certain tracks will definitely bring up old pain and old wounding. This is what I think. If that technique works for you, I think that's awesome. And I think we need to go with what we feel works for us. However, the way that I tend to work with big or small t traumas or wounding is I try not to necessarily put the person through the pain and again and again. Like there are certain types of therapy, for example, exposure therapy, which actually works with, okay, so if we keep exposing ourselves to that pain or to that stimulus, eventually it'll process and will neutralize. And like I said, it works for some people. I personally try to work in a way where I don't re-trigger the person back into previous pain or into old wounding. So the sort of things that I tend to use, matrix re-imprinting is a beautiful technique that allows you to really step back, to go into the memory, work on the memory, change the belief system, and come out again. Right. So this is what I'm saying, that a lot of the cutting edge tools and techniques aren't actually they're not discussed. People don't know much about them. We tend to kind of gravitate towards the traditional techniques. But yeah, like I said, if that works, awesome. That's the most important thing. Okay. Right. Often culturally influenced too, I think. Yep. Nisha, what's that in? Is that when we were talking about the South Asian mental health and stuff? Or definitely that would be relevant to when we're speaking about stigmas and how we as a community deal with stigmas, looking at the belief systems that we carry as a consciousness. I see a lot of people, to be fair, I see a lot of women actually come into clinic, and it's really interesting looking at the sorts of things that come up for women, things about having to deal with work-life balance or family conflicts or expectations, or being, feeling that they have to be a certain way, they can't be their authentic selves. Not to say, of course, men don't experience this too, but I'm just saying that I've worked with a lot of women in that particular area. So okay, no one has issues with broken limb or scars, but when it comes to issues with emotions or unspeakable, stigma comes into play. Yeah, Simi, I think you're right. And I think one of the reasons for that is because I think empathy plays a key role here. There are a lot of the time I see that if people themselves haven't experienced an issue, or if they don't understand an issue, they can't necessarily relate to how the other person may be going through that issue. The little, the issues that we all, they're very, very different person to person. And sometimes it's amazing how many people just don't necessarily have the awareness immediately to be able to just kind of step back, move their own stuff out of the way, and just hear what somebody else is saying. Hear it, be non-judgmental about it, validate it. And if we just started to do that, soften the energy around it, people would probably feel a lot safer and move through mental health issues quicker. Okay, so yeah, that's a very good point. Right, okay, so being an actor, my voice is a major tool. Okay. Oh, I've just realized we're top of time. So last one I'll take. Being an actor is, my voice is a major tool for me. Can you please suggest some voice exercises? That is a good question. And for that, it depends what sort of voice exercises you're asking about. I mean, you have the sort of exercises that a vocal coach would give you, or you would have maybe some emotional exercises about what your voice means to you, or even about tuning into the energy that is around here and using certain tools and techniques. Jay, for that, I would need a bit more information. So yeah, you would probably actually be it would be good for you to maybe even ask Hinal. Hinal, can you chime in on that at all?
Oh, wow. Hi, Jay. Jay is a very, very deep family connection from when I did a trip to India when I was 14. Gosh, that's like way before maybe Jay was around. But his dad accompanied me on a very long drive from Delhi to Gujarat. And that's how long our relationship goes back. So it's great to have him on. Jay, vocal exercises. I'm not a vocalist. There are a few vocalists on here. But I guess who can I recommend? Sonia's on here. Sonia could pip in with this, and even maybe Navin if he's still around. Navin, if you're still on, pitch up some links to some good vocal coaches or vocal exercises for warm-ups. But when we were in theatre, they would go through a routine of lip trills and vowel exercises and big yawns and that kind of stuff. But what I'll do, Jay, I'll send you some on private messenger for you so you can have a look at some stuff, definitely, for your vocal exercises. I'll do that.
Yeah, they're quite interesting, aren't they, some of them?
Yeah.
All sorts of funny noises and things. It's quite fun.
They are quite fun. And especially if you don't know what's going on, it's hilarious, actually. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so.
This was a good question. I saw this earlier.
Okay, I missed this one. What's this? Has many physical health problems? Yeah, actually, Mitesh, right, if I was to work with your father, actually what I would probably do to start off with him is to start to work on how he feels about having these issues. So not even on the issues themselves, actually start on the outskirts about how he feels. And I'd recommend, again, that probably my go-to tool for this would be EFT, to start to shift the emotions and the thoughts and the energy around this. So, if you private message me, I can recommend some really good EFT practitioners that would be able to help you with that. So if that's something you're open to, just drop me a message. Okay, guys, so Hinal, you want to jump back on, because we are done, I think, right?
Are we doing something like a closing piece? Is that what we're looking for here?
Well, you could if you want. Yeah. Thank you, guys. You've been absolutely fantastic, and I hope it has been useful today.
So this is going to be the last one for today. I was checking through our messages, and I saw a request from a dear friend, Paviti, and so I'm going to close off with this one. It's usually what I'm thinking when you've been too busy to cook my favorite meal for me.
Oh God, I think I better cook for you soon, Hinal. I think.
Yeah. Here we go.
That was awesome, Hin. That's one of my favorites, you know.
I know, I left that one to last.
I know. I listened to it in like male version, the female version. It's awesome.
The male version is actually quite cool.
It is, yeah, it is. It's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Hey.
Wow. That was one fabulous session. I think, we could go on and on. It's just that a bit late in the night, but otherwise it was so informative as well as, so entertaining. So we've seen so many comments coming through from all the people, and you can see for yourself,
Oh, awesome.
Thanks, Raj.
So it's been fabulous, and especially the last piece was such a befitting ending to this program. And Sunita, I think it was really informative. A lot of things we learned today as well about mental health, and I think you, like we discussed, you went one step deeper into the topic, and I think it makes a lot of sense to to have that discussion, to say, how do we feel about ourselves? How does food impact us?
Yeah.
And we talk about mental health, and we say, yeah, about mental awareness and everything. But at the end of the day, there are other connected points such as your nutrition, your physical fitness, your exercise, and so on. So and how we look at it. So thank you so much. It was really informative. And great having both of you with us today. And yeah, so I'm sure I'll bother both of you again for a future program. So basically, there's so many people asking for more. So I'm sure there's more to talk about in the future. And thank you so much for this. So basically, what we will do is, yeah. So thanks a lot for the audience. I mean, I could see so much of interaction. So there are very few programs where we have so many questions and so much of interaction and so much of feedback. So thank you, audience, for being such a fabulous audience, so interactive. And with that, we look forward to further programs on Sangeet Foundation, similar ones. We have one coming up on the 30th of this month with this gentleman called Harold D'Souza, who was human trafficked in the US, and he now heads anti-human trafficking. I was about to say human trafficking, but he heads anti-human trafficking in the White House. So he was with the Obama administration, with the Trump administration, and he's also going to be in the future administrations as well. So we are going to have him on board, and he's going to share a lot of his experiences and what he does around the world. So we'll have quite a few good programs coming up. But then with the current program, I think, thank you so much for this. We will take it up. Sunita, thanks a lot. I see that, Hinal has disappeared now.
Where he's gone.
I think technology is always a challenge. So like I say, the good thing about technology is that it sometimes works. So as long as it works, I think we are fine. So
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, and good night, and have a great week ahead. I think soon Hinal is coming in. I think we've added him back.
Oh, there you go.
I had to put money in the meter.
Or maybe he's run, or maybe he's run out of energy because he hasn't had proper cooked roti. Maybe.
I've been so hungry, I can't believe it. It's my fault.
I just love the chemistry between you two on screen. I mean, this is absolutely fabulous, and the feedback has been that as well. So from the audience.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It was brilliant. It was good fun.
Okay then. Take care and good night. Shaba khair.
Good night, guys.
There, and